The Deathworld Summit invited humans. Their response was pure HFY. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning at the human space station orbiting Earth. Ambassador Kelvin Harris was drinking his coffee when his assistant, Lisa Morgan, rushed into his office with a data pad in her hands. Her eyes were wide with surprise and something that looked like concern. "Sir, you need to see this right now," she said, placing the pad on his desk. Kelvin picked it up and started reading. The message was written in perfect English, translated by advanced alien technology. It came from someone called High Chancellor Trivak of the Galactic Council. Kelvin had heard of the Council before. Everyone on Earth had heard about them since first contact 5 years ago. They were a group of 47 alien species who worked together in peace. They had been around for 3,000 years. The Council had discovered Earth and immediately classified it as what they called a death world. According to their reports, Earth was one of the most dangerous planets they had ever found. The gravity was too strong. The oxygen levels were too high. The weather was violent and unpredictable. Predators were everywhere. Most alien species would die within minutes of landing on Earth without special protection. But humans had not just survived on Earth. They had thrived. They had become the dominant species on a planet that should have killed them. The aliens found this both fascinating and terrifying. For 5 years, the Council had kept their distance. They sent automated messages sometimes, usually warnings to stay away from certain areas of space. They observed Earth from far away but never invited humans to visit their worlds. The reason was simple. They were afraid of Deathworlders. Now everything had changed. The invitation on the datapad was asking Kelvin to attend a summit on Valter Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. It was the first time humans had ever been invited to Council space. "Why now?" Kelvin asked, looking up at Lisa. "What changed?" Lisa pulled up another file on the datapad. "There's a threat. Something called the Krell Dominion. They're a hostile force from beyond Council space, and they're destroying everything in their path." Kelvin read through the reports. The Krell had already attacked and destroyed 3 frontier worlds. Billions of alien civilians were dead. The Council fleets had tried to stop them but failed every time. The Krell ships were powerful and their tactics were brutal. They didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They just destroyed everything. "The Council is desperate," Kelvin said slowly. "They're scared enough to invite Deathworlders to their capital. What are you going to tell them?" Lisa asked. Kelvin stood up and walked to the window. Below him, Earth rotated peacefully. From space, it looked beautiful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. It was hard to believe this was considered one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. "We accept the invitation," Kelvin said. "We show them what humans can do." The next week was busy. Kelvin assembled a team for the summit. He chose people carefully. Colonel Jake Pierce would represent the military perspective. He was a veteran with 30 years of experience. Dr. Helen Clark was a xenobiologist who studied alien life forms. Marcus Webb was a cultural liaison who specialized in communication between different species. They prepared for the trip by studying everything they could about the Galactic Council and the Krell threat. The more they learned, the more concerned they became. The Council species were peaceful by nature. They had very little experience with real warfare. Most of their conflicts were solved through talking and negotiation. The Krell were different. They came from a harsh world with high gravity and limited resources. Their entire culture was built around strength and dominance. They saw the peaceful Council species as weak prey. Every time the Council tried to negotiate, the Krell saw it as confirmation of weakness. "They're predators," Helen explained during one briefing. "Everything about their biology and behavior suggests they're pack hunters. They're not trying to conquer territory or steal resources. They're establishing dominance. They're proving they're the strongest species in the galaxy." "How do you fight predators?" Marcus asked. Jake smiled grimly. "You prove you're a bigger predator. You make them afraid to hunt you." The journey to Valter Prime took 2 weeks aboard the human diplomatic ship Unity. The ship was new, designed specifically for interaction with alien species. It had areas with different gravity levels and atmosphere mixes. It could accommodate a variety of alien guests while keeping humans comfortable. As they traveled through space, Kelvin thought about what this summit meant. Humanity was still new to the galactic community. They were unknown and feared. This was their chance to show the galaxy who humans really were. It was also a chance to help species who needed it. Despite the danger and uncertainty, Kelvin felt ready. When they finally arrived at Valter Prime, the planet took their breath away. It was smaller than Earth with lower gravity. The atmosphere was thinner and had much less oxygen. For the aliens who lived there, it was paradise. For humans, it would be deadly without breathing equipment. A Zorathian named Zilrath met them at the spaceport. Zorathians were reptilian aliens with scales that changed color based on their emotions. Zilrath's scales kept shifting between blue and green, which their research suggested meant nervousness and curiosity. "Welcome, honored guests," Zilrath said through a translation device. His real voice sounded like clicks and hisses, but the translator turned it into perfect English. "We have prepared special accommodations for you. The summit begins tomorrow morning." They were taken to a section of the city that had been modified for human needs. The gravity was increased to Earth normal. The oxygen levels were raised to 21%. Even the temperature was adjusted to be comfortable for humans. Kelvin appreciated the effort, even though he knew it must have been expensive and difficult to arrange. That night, Kelvin couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the summit and what the Council expected from humanity. They wanted advice on how to fight the Krell. They wanted to understand how Deathworlders survived and thrived in hostile conditions. They wanted to learn from a species that had experience with violence and warfare. Kelvin wondered if they would be frightened by what they learned. Human history was full of war and conflict. For most of human existence, different groups had fought each other over territory, resources, and ideas. Thousands of wars had been fought. Millions of people had died. It was only in the last century that humanity had finally achieved global peace and unity. Those wars had taught humans hard lessons. They had learned how to fight, how to survive, and how to win against terrible odds. They had learned to be strategic and ruthless when necessary. They had also learned the value of peace and cooperation. Both lessons would be important in the days ahead. As Kelvin finally drifted off to sleep, he thought about what Jake had said during their briefing. The way to fight predators was to prove you were a bigger predator. Tomorrow, humanity would show the Galactic Council exactly what kind of predators humans could be when they needed to protect others. The summit hall was enormous. Kelvin stood at the entrance with his team, looking at the massive amphitheater before them. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of different species filled the seats. Some looked like reptiles, others like insects or birds. A few were so strange that Kelvin couldn't begin to describe them. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert all the different languages. As the human delegation walked in, the hall became quiet. Every alien eye turned to look at them. Some aliens actually moved away, creating space around the humans as if they were dangerous animals. Kelvin understood why. To these species, humans were dangerous. They came from a world that would kill most of them in minutes. High Chancellor Trevek stood at the center of the hall on a raised platform. He was a Zorathian like Zilrath, but much larger and more impressive. His scales were deep red, which suggested authority and confidence. He watched the humans approach with eyes that seemed both curious and cautious. "Welcome to the Galactic Council Summit," Trevek announced, his voice amplified throughout the hall. "Today we face a threat unlike any in our long history. The Krell Dominion has destroyed 3 of our frontier worlds. Billions are dead. Our fleets cannot stop them. Our strategies have all failed." He paused and gestured to a holographic display that appeared in the air above the center of the hall. Images showed devastated planets, burning cities, and broken ships floating in space. The destruction was total and horrifying. "The Krell do not negotiate," Trevek continued. "They do not seek resources or territory. They simply destroy everything they encounter. Our military advisors cannot understand their tactics. Our diplomats cannot establish communication. We are losing this war." Another alien stood up, a Vraxian with a shell-like armor covering its body. "We have tried everything. Defensive formations, peace offerings, strategic retreats. Nothing works. The Krell keep coming and we keep dying." Trevak's scales shifted to a darker red. "That is why we have invited humanity to this summit. You come from a death world. You have survived conditions that would kill any of us. We hope that your unique perspective can help us understand how to face this threat." Kelvin stood up slowly, all eyes in the hall focused on him. He could feel the fear and desperation in the room. These species had lived in peace for thousands of years. They didn't know how to fight a real war. "Thank you for the invitation, High Chancellor," Kelvin said clearly. "Before we discuss the Krell, I have a question. How many wars has the Galactic Council fought in its 3,000 years of existence? Trevak seemed confused by the question. His scales shifted colors. Wars? We have had disagreements. Trade disputes. Border conflicts. Perhaps 6 or 7 situations that required military intervention. But they were resolved quickly through negotiation. In the last 3,000 years of human history, Kelvin said, letting his words sink in, humanity has fought approximately 15,000 wars. The hall exploded with noise. Aliens spoke in shocked voices. Some made sounds of disbelief. Others looked at the humans with what could only be described as horror. 15,000 wars was a number they couldn't comprehend. A Delian delegate stood up, her feathers puffed up in distress. Your species fights itself constantly? You are at war all the time? We were, Marcus corrected gently. Humanity achieved global peace and unity about a century ago. But yes, for most of our history, we fought each other. Different nations, different tribes, different groups. We fought over land, resources, ideas, and sometimes just because we were afraid of each other. That's barbaric, another alien said quietly. Perhaps, Jake spoke up, his military bearing evident. But those 15,000 wars taught us things that no peaceful species could ever learn. We learned how to fight, how to survive, how to win against enemies who wanted to destroy us completely, and most importantly, we learned why peace is worth fighting for. Helen activated her own holographic display, showing data about human biology and history. Humans evolved on a death world. We were prey animals for thousands of years. We were hunted by creatures bigger and stronger than us. We should have gone extinct. But we didn't. We learned to use our intelligence. We developed tools. We created strategies. Eventually, we stopped being prey and became predators ourselves. What does this have to do with the Krell? Asked the Vraxian admiral who had spoken earlier. Everything, Jake said firmly. You're trying to fight the Krell using strategies designed for fighting other council species. You assume they think like you do? You assume they want something you can negotiate over. But the Krell aren't like council species. They're predators, and you're treating them like reasonable beings who just need the right incentive to stop attacking. Kelvin brought up the Krell attack data that the council had provided. Look at these patterns. You keep trying to predict where they'll strike next based on strategic value, resource-rich systems, important trade routes, military installations. But that's not how predators hunt. Helen zoomed in on specific details. Predators hunt based on instinct and opportunity. They target the weak. They strike where resistance is lowest. They're not trying to gain strategic advantage. They're trying to prove dominance. Every time you retreat or try to negotiate, you're confirming in their minds that you're prey. So what do we do? Trevak asked, leaning forward. How do we stop being prey? You become predators, Jake said simply. You stop defending and start attacking. You stop reacting to their moves and start making them react to yours. You hurt them badly enough that they learn to fear you. The suggestion caused another wave of shocked conversation throughout the hall. A small alien with large eyes stood up. That goes against everything the council stands for. We are peaceful. We don't start fights. We defend ourselves, but we don't attack. Then you'll lose, Jake said bluntly. The Krell respect only one thing, and that is strength. They see your peaceful nature as weakness. Every time you hold back, every time you show mercy, they see it as proof that they're the superior species. You need to change that perception immediately. Marcus stepped forward, speaking in a softer tone. We're not asking you to abandon your values. We're asking you to adapt them so you can survive. Humans have a very old saying. If you want peace, prepare for war. It means that sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to be strong enough and willing enough to fight for it. Kelvin looked directly at Trevak. Humanity is offering to help you. We can train your military forces. We can teach you tactics that work against aggressive predators. We can show you how to make the Krell think twice before attacking another council world. But you need to trust us even when our methods seem harsh or brutal. Because they will be brutal, Jake added. War's always brutal. The Krell have already shown you that. The question is whether you're willing to respond with equal force. The hall was silent now. Every alien was thinking about what the humans had said. It went against their nature, their culture, their entire way of life. But they were also dying. Their worlds were burning. Their people were being slaughtered. Something had to change. Finally, Trevak spoke. His voice was heavy with the weight of his decision. What would you need from us? Full tactical command during operations, Jake said immediately. Complete access to your fleet specifications and capabilities. And most importantly, you need to trust us. When we give orders that seem wrong or cruel, you need to follow them anyway. We know what we're doing." Trevak looked at the other council leaders. Silent communication passed between them. Then he turned back to the humans. "Very well. The council agrees to your terms. Show us how to survive." 3 months had passed since the summit on Valter Prime. In that time, everything had changed. The human delegation had been given access to the council's military forces and had started implementing what they called the human doctrine. It was a complete change from how the council had always fought. Admiral Victoria Hayes stood on the bridge of the council flagship Resolve. The ship had been modified with human tactical systems and new weapons. Victoria was an experienced naval commander with 25 years of service. She had fought in the last human conflicts before global peace. If anyone understood warfare, it was her. The bridge crew around her was mixed. Zorathians, Vraxians, Delians, and half a dozen other species worked at their stations. They had all been trained in human tactics over the past 3 months. At first, they had been shocked and even horrified by what humans considered normal military strategy. Now they understood why it was necessary. "Admiral, we're approaching the Corvin system," reported a Vraxian tactical officer named Krell. The name was unfortunate, but the officer was excellent at his job. "Status of the fleet?" Victoria asked. "All 70 ships are in position and ready," Krell replied. "Hidden in the asteroid field as ordered. The Krell won't see us until we're ready to strike." Victoria nodded and brought up the tactical display. The Corvin system was a recently evacuated world directly in the path of the Krell advance. Human analysts had predicted that the Krell would attack here next. Not because of strategic value, but because it was the next closest target with signs of recent habitation. Predators followed patterns and the humans had figured out the Krell pattern. "Remember everyone," Victoria addressed the bridge crew. "The Krell are expecting us to defend. They're expecting us to form defensive positions around the planet and wait for them to attack. We're not doing that. We're going to hit them first, hit them hard, and hit them from angles they don't expect." A Delian communications officer named Vera looked nervous. Her feathers kept changing colors. "Admiral, I still don't understand. Why don't we try to communicate first? Why don't we at least attempt negotiation?" Victoria turned to face her directly. Her voice was firm but not unkind. "Because the Krell have attacked 12 council worlds now. They've killed billions of your people. Not once have they responded to communication attempts. Not once have they shown any interest in negotiation. The only thing they understand is force, so we're going to speak their language." The Delian nodded slowly, though she still looked uncomfortable. That was fine. Victoria didn't need them to like the strategy. She just needed them to follow it. Suddenly, alarms started beeping across the bridge. "Admiral, multiple hyperspace signatures detected," Krell announced. "It's them. The Krell fleet is arriving." The tactical display showed the Krell ships emerging from hyperspace. 50 warships, each one massive and heavily armed. They were arranged in a formation that suggested confidence. They expected an easy fight. Victoria felt her heart rate increase. This was it. The first real test of human tactics against the Krell. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "All ships hold position," Victoria commanded. "Wait for my signal. Let them get closer." The Krell fleet moved toward the planet. They were scanning for defensive positions, expecting to find council ships waiting near the world. But there was nothing there. The planet appeared undefended. "They're confused," Krell reported. "Their formations are breaking slightly. They're scanning more actively." "Good," Victoria said. "Confused enemies make mistakes." "Wait for it." The Krell fleet moved deeper into the system, spreading out to search for the expected defenders. They moved right into the middle of the asteroid field where the council fleet was hiding. "Now," Victoria said quietly, "execute Operation Grizzly. All ships attack." The asteroid field suddenly came alive with ships. 70 council vessels appeared from hiding spots and struck from every direction. The Krell were surrounded before they even realized what was happening. Human-designed weapons slammed into Krell shields. The munitions weren't just designed to destroy. They were designed to create psychological impact. Bright explosions. Loud detonations. Visual effects that would trigger predator instincts. Everything calculated to create fear and confusion. "Target their flagship," Victoria ordered. "Pour everything we have into it." 20 council ships focused all their firepower on the largest Krell vessel. It was a massive ship with heavy armor and powerful shields. Under normal circumstances, it would take hours to bring it down. But 20 ships firing simultaneously was more than its defenses could handle. The Krell flagship's shields flickered and failed. Weapons fire tore into its hull. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface. Within minutes, the command ship of the Krell fleet was breaking apart. "Their flagship is destroyed," Krell announced, and Victoria could hear the shock in his voice. "The Krell are scattered. They don't know how to respond." "Press the attack," Victoria commanded. "Don't give them time to think. Hit them again. Make them afraid." The Council fleet moved in coordinated groups using tactics adapted from Earth predators, wolfpack strategies, lion pride hunting patterns. They isolated Krell ships and overwhelmed them with numbers. They struck at weak points. They gave no quarter and no time to recover. The Krell tried to fight back. Their ships were powerful and their weapons were devastating. But they were confused and disorganized. Their commander was dead. Their formation was broken. For the first time in their expansion, they faced an enemy that fought like they did. "Admiral, the Krell are retreating," Vera announced with amazement. "They're actually running away." Victoria watched the tactical display as the remaining Krell ships turned and fled toward the edge of the system. They were heading for hyperspace, abandoning the fight. "Pursue them," Victoria ordered. "Don't let them escape easily. Make sure they remember this day." The Council fleet chased the fleeing Krell ships, continuing to fire. More Krell vessels were destroyed before they could jump to hyperspace. By the time the last enemy ship disappeared, the Krell had lost 37 ships. The Council fleet had lost 6, and all 6 crews had been evacuated before their ships were destroyed. It was the first major victory against the Krell. More than that, it was the first time the Krell had ever retreated from a battle. The bridge crew was silent for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. Soon the entire bridge was celebrating. Victoria allowed herself a small smile. "Send a message to High Chancellor Travak. Tell him Operation Grizzly was a success. Tell him the Krell know we can hurt them now." Krell approached her station. "Admiral, I need to say something. 3 months ago, when you humans first explained your tactics, I thought you were monsters. I thought your strategies were cruel and excessive. But now I understand. You weren't teaching us to be cruel. You were teaching us to survive." "War is never pleasant," Victoria replied. "But sometimes it's necessary. The important thing is knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. Today we fought because we had to. Tomorrow maybe we can talk." As the fleet regrouped and began the journey back to Council space, Victoria looked at the tactical display one last time. The Krell had lost badly today. They had been hurt and humiliated. That was good. But it was also dangerous. Wounded predators were the most dangerous of all. The Krell would come back. They would be angry and more cautious. The next fight would be harder, but for today the Council had won. For the first time since the Krell appeared, the galaxy's peaceful species had shown they could fight back. Human tactics had proven effective. The human doctrine worked. Word of the victory spread through Council space faster than light. Every species heard about the battle at Corvan. They heard how human strategies and human training had defeated an enemy that seemed unbeatable. They heard that Deathworlders had come to help and had actually succeeded. Victoria knew this was just the beginning. One battle didn't win a war, but it was a start. It gave hope to species that had been losing hope. It showed the Krell that the galaxy had teeth. Most importantly, it proved that sometimes the best way to achieve peace was to be very good at war. Humanity had learned that lesson through thousands of conflicts. Now they were teaching it to the galaxy. And the Krell were about to learn that predators should be very careful about what they choose to hunt, because sometimes the prey fights back. 2 weeks after the battle at Corvan, something unprecedented happened. The Krell sent a message. It was the first time in their entire expansion that the Krell had communicated with any species. Before this, they had simply attacked without warning or explanation. Kelvin stood in the council chamber on Valter Prime, watching as technicians prepared to broadcast the incoming transmission. High Chancellor Travak was there, along with representatives from every council species. The human delegation was present as well. Everyone wanted to see what the Krell would say. "We're receiving the signal now," announced a technician, broadcasting to all screens. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the image of a Krell commander. The creature was massive, easily 3 meters tall. Its body was covered in overlapping armor plates that looked like they had evolved naturally. Multiple eyes studied the camera with an intelligence that was both alien and familiar. When it spoke, the translation came through in a deep, rumbling voice. "You are not prey," the Krell commander stated simply. "What are you?" Kelvin stepped forward, knowing this moment was critical. How he responded would determine whether communication continued or if the war escalated. "We are human. We come from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. We are survivors. We are warriors, and we stand with our allies in the Galactic Council." The Krell commander tilted its head, a gesture that suggested curiosity. "You fight differently than the others. The others are weak, they run. They hide behind defensive positions. You attacked us. You hunted us like we hunt. Why?" Jake moved to stand beside Kelvin. "Because we understand what you are. You're predators. You hunt to prove your strength. But you made a mistake. You assumed the council species were prey. They're not. They're just peaceful. There's a difference." "Peaceful is weak," the Krell replied. "We have tested them. They always break. They always run. This proves they are prey." Helen joined the conversation, her scientific mind working to bridge the cultural gap. "You're wrong. Choosing peace doesn't mean lacking strength. It means having enough strength to show mercy. The council species could fight like we just showed you at Corvin. They chose not to because they value life. That's not weakness. That's wisdom." The Krell commander made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. "You speak of wisdom, but you attacked without warning. You destroyed our ships. You killed our warriors. This is what predators do." "Yes," Kelvin agreed. "We did what predators do, because that's the only language you understand. We hurt you. We made you retreat, and now you're talking to us. You never talked before because you never met a species that could hurt you back." There was a long silence. The Krell commander's multiple eyes seemed to study each human carefully, as if trying to understand something that didn't fit into its worldview. "You were strange prey," the Krell finally said. "No, not prey. You are strange hunters. You fight with the ferocity of predators, but you speak of protecting the weak. How can this be?" Marcus stepped forward, using his skills as a cultural liaison to explain something that most humans took for granted. "Humanity used to be like you. For most of our history, we were aggressive. We fought each other constantly. We hunted, we dominated. We proved our strength through violence. But we learned something important." "What did you learn?" the Krell asked. "We learned that the strongest predator isn't the one that kills the most," Marcus explained. "It's the one that knows when not to kill. Real strength is protecting those who can't protect themselves. Real power is choosing mercy when you could choose violence. The council species already knew this. We had to learn it the hard way." Jake added his perspective. "Think about it from a tactical standpoint. You've been expanding through council space, destroying worlds, killing billions. You thought you were proving your strength. But what did you actually prove? That you could kill peaceful species who didn't fight back? That's not impressive. That's just bullying." The Krell commander's armor plates shifted, suggesting some kind of emotional response. "You insult our victories?" "No," Victoria spoke up, her military authority clear in her voice. "We're telling you the truth. You never proved you were strong. You only proved the council was peaceful. At Corvin, you fought an enemy that fought back. You lost. Badly. That battle actually tested your strength, and you failed the test." The words were harsh but calculated. Humans had studied Krell psychology for months. They understood that the Krell respected strength and directness. Sugarcoating the truth would be seen as weakness. "You speak boldly for prey that has only won one battle," the Krell commander said, but there was less confidence in its voice now. "We speak boldly because we know what we're capable of," Kelvin replied. "That battle at Corvin, that was us holding back. We could have wiped out your entire fleet. We let most of you retreat. Do you understand what that means?" "It means you were weak," the Krell suggested, but it sounded more like a question than a statement. "It means we were strong enough to choose mercy," Helen corrected. "Only the truly powerful can offer mercy. Prey can't offer mercy. Predators can. We gave you a choice that day. We could have exterminated you, but we didn't. We let you live so you could learn." "Learn what?" "Learn that there are other ways to be strong," Marcus said. "The galaxy is huge. There are threats out there that would terrify even you. There are challenges that no single species can face alone. Humanity learned that lesson. We learned that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Working together is better than fighting each other." The Krell commander was silent for a long time. Its eyes moved between the humans and the council representative standing behind them. Finally, it spoke again. In our culture, the hunt is sacred. We hunt to prove our place in the pack. The strongest hunters lead. The weak are cast out. When we found the council species, they seemed weak. We thought hunting them would prove our strength. And now, Trivak asked, speaking for the first time. Now we are confused, the Krell admitted. These humans are strong hunters. They speak of protecting the weak, but they fight like apex predators. They show mercy, but they also show teeth. We do not understand this. Kelvin felt a spark of hope. Confusion was better than aggression. Confusion meant the Krell were thinking instead of just attacking. Let me ask you something. What's the purpose of hunting in your culture? To prove strength. To establish dominance. To earn our place. And you've done that, Kelvin said. You've proved you can fight. You've established that you're strong. The entire galaxy knows the Krell are powerful. So what happens now? Do you keep hunting until everything is dead? Or do you find a new purpose? The Krell commander's armor plates rippled again. You suggest we stop hunting? I suggest you hunt smarter, Jake said. Right now you're hunting easy prey and calling it victory. That's not impressive, but if you worked with the council, if you hunted real threats together, that would prove your strength. That would show the galaxy that the Krell are not just destructive, but valuable. You would hunt alongside Krell? The commander asked, and there was genuine surprise in its voice. If you prove you're worthy, Victoria replied. If you can show that you're strong enough to be partners instead of enemies. Are you? It was a challenge, phrased in terms the Krell would understand. Not a plea for peace, but a test of their strength. Could they rise above their instincts? Could they be more than simple predators? The transmission flickered slightly. Your words require consideration, the Krell commander said finally. We will consult with our pack leaders. This is not a decision one commander can make alone. Take your time, Kelvin said. But know this. The next time we meet in battle, we won't show mercy. Korvan was your warning. The next fight will be for keeps. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent as everyone processed what had just happened. The Krell had communicated. They had listened. They had shown confusion and maybe even doubt. It was more than anyone had hoped for. Trivak approached the human delegation. You've done something we thought impossible. You've made them question themselves. Don't celebrate yet, Jake warned. This could go either way. The Krell might decide to work with us, or they might decide to prove their strength by hitting us even harder. We need to be ready for both possibilities. What do we do now? Asked a Vraxian representative. Kelvin looked at his team, then back at the assembled council members. We prepare, we train, we get stronger. And we hope the Krell are smart enough to choose cooperation over destruction, because if they choose wrong, we'll have to teach them the lesson humanity learned thousands of years ago. What lesson is that? Trivak asked. That Deathworlders are called that for a reason, Kelvin replied quietly. When we have to be, we're the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 6 weeks passed after the first Krell communication. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. During this time, humanity continued training council forces. More ships were equipped with human tactical systems. More officers learned the human doctrine. The council was preparing for war while hoping for peace. Kelvin spent most of his time on Valtor Prime, working with council leaders to develop contingency plans. Every day he wondered whether the Krell would choose cooperation or conflict. Every night he looked at the stars and thought about the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Then the second transmission arrived. It came without warning, just like the first. Kelvin was in a meeting with Trivak when the alert sounded. They rushed to the council chamber where the holographic display was already activating. The same Krell commander appeared, but this time it wasn't alone. Behind it stood several other Krell, their armor plates marked with patterns that suggested high rank. These were the pack leaders, the ones who made decisions for their entire species. Humans, the commander began, we have considered your words. We have debated among ourselves. Our people are divided. Some wish to continue the hunt. Others believe there is wisdom in what you said. Kelvin felt his heart racing. This was the moment everything had been building toward. What have you decided? We have questions first, another Krell said. This one with golden markings on its armor. You claim that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Prove this. Show us examples. Helen stepped forward, bringing up holographic displays. Humanity's own history provides the best example. For thousands of years, we were divided into hundreds of nations. We fought constantly. Each war made us weaker even when we won. Then we learned to work together. In the century since we achieved global unity, humans have advanced more than in the previous 1,000 years. We've reached the stars. We've cured diseases. We've created wonders that were impossible when we were divided. The Galactic Council is another example, Marcus added. 47 species working together. They've achieved 3,000 years of peace and prosperity. They've created technologies and art and philosophy that no single species could create alone. That's the power of cooperation. A third Krell spoke, its armor marked with red patterns. But cooperation requires trust. How do we trust prey species that we have hunted? How do they trust us after we have killed so many of their people? It was a fair question and a difficult one. Kelvin looked at Trevak, who stepped forward to answer. Trust is earned, Trevak said, his scales showing colors that suggested thoughtfulness. It cannot be given freely. If the Krell wish to join the galactic community, they must prove they can be trusted. This will take time. It will require actions, not just words. What actions? The first Krell commander asked. Jake outlined what humanity had discussed with council leaders. First, an immediate ceasefire. All Krell military operations stop. Second, reparations to the worlds you've damaged. This doesn't mean you have to rebuild everything yourself, but you need to contribute to the recovery efforts. Third, you need to allow council observers on your world so we can understand your culture and you can understand ours. You ask us to show weakness, the red-marked Krell said, to allow others to observe us, to give resources to those we have defeated. No, Victoria corrected firmly, we're asking you to show strength. It takes no strength to destroy. Any fool with a weapon can kill. It takes real strength to build, to heal, to admit mistakes and make them right. If you can do these things, you'll prove you're not just predators. You'll prove you're worthy of respect. The Krell leaders conferred among themselves in their own language. The humans couldn't understand the words, but the body language suggested intense debate. Some Krell seemed angry. Others seemed contemplative. The discussion went on for several minutes. Finally, the golden-marked Krell spoke. We have decided. The Krell will accept a ceasefire. We will stop our expansion. But we have conditions of our own. Name them, Trevak said. First, we require that humans serve as mediators between Krell and Council, the Golden Krell explained. You understand both predator and prey mindsets. You can help us communicate without misunderstanding. Second, we wish to establish cultural exchange programs. We need to learn how species can be strong without constant conflict. Third, we demand that Council forces do not enter Krell space without invitation. We will observe the ceasefire, but we will defend our territory if threatened. Kelvin looked at Trevak, who nodded slowly. These conditions are acceptable. The Council agrees. Then we have an agreement, the first Krell commander said. But understand this. The Krell are predators. This is our nature. We cannot change what we are. If this peace fails, if the Council threatens us, we will fight. And now we know you can fight back. The next war will be devastating for everyone, which is exactly why we must make sure there is no next war, Kelvin replied. Humanity spent thousands of years threatening each other with the same logic. Mutual destruction is not a strategy. It's a failure. We're offering you a chance to be more than what you've been. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it. The Krell were silent for a moment. Then the golden-marked one spoke again. You are clever with words, human. You make challenges seem like offers. Very well. We will try your way. But if this fails, remember that the Krell showed restraint. We could have fought to the death. We chose to listen. That is our show of strength. And it's noted and respected, Marcus assured them. This is the beginning of something new for all of us. It won't be easy. There will be mistakes and misunderstandings. But if we commit to making this work, it can change the galaxy. The transmission ended with agreements to meet again in 1 month to discuss details of the ceasefire and begin planning cultural exchanges. When the holographic display faded, the council chamber erupted in conversation. Some voices were relieved, others skeptical, but everyone recognized the historical significance of what had just happened. Trevak approached Kelvin with his scales, showing colors of deep respect. When we invited humans to the summit 6 months ago, we hoped for tactical advice. We never imagined you would transform our entire relationship with the Krell. We didn't transform it alone, Kelvin replied. You had to be willing to try something different. The Krell had to be willing to question their nature. Everyone played a part. Lisa, who had been watching from the side, joined them. What happens now? Do you really think this peace will last? Honestly? I don't know, Kelvin admitted. The Krell are predators. That won't change overnight or maybe ever. The council species are peaceful. That's core to who they are. Finding common ground will be difficult, but it's possible. Humanity is proof of that. Jake was more pragmatic. We need to keep our guard up. Trust is good, but verification is better. We should continue training council forces just in case, and we should probably establish some kind of joint military exercises with the Krell eventually. Show them that being allied with the council makes them stronger, not weaker. Helen added her thoughts. From a biological and cultural standpoint, this is fascinating. We're attempting to integrate a predator species into a community of peaceful species. It's never been done before at this scale. There will be challenges we can't predict, but the potential benefits are enormous. Imagine what the galaxy could achieve if Krell's strength was directed toward constructive purposes. Victoria nodded. The Krell could be valuable allies. They're fierce fighters. If they commit to defending council space instead of attacking it, the galaxy becomes a much safer place. And maybe having them around will help remind the council that sometimes you need to be ready to fight, even if you prefer peace. As the human delegation left the council chamber that day, Kelvin reflected on how far they'd come. 6 months ago, humans had been feared outsiders, Deathworlders that council species wanted nothing to do with. Now they were respected mediators who had helped prevent a devastating war and potentially integrated a hostile species into the galactic community. But the real test was still ahead. Words and agreements were easy compared to actual implementation. Making this peace work would require patience, understanding, and constant effort from everyone involved. That night, Kelvin stood at the observation window in his quarters, looking out at Valtor Prime below. The city lights sparkled in the darkness, peaceful and beautiful. Somewhere out in the galaxy, Krell warriors were standing down from their hunting. Council species were beginning to hope again. Humanity had come to the Deathworld summit expecting to teach warfare. Instead, they had taught something more important. They had shown that strength without wisdom was just destruction, that predators could choose to be protectors, that the most powerful choice was sometimes choosing not to fight. It was the most human lesson of all. And it was pure HFY. 1 year had passed since the ceasefire agreement with the Krell. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Kelvin stood in the new Joint Species Cooperation Center on Valtor Prime, watching through the observation window as Krell warriors trained alongside Council security forces. It was a strange sight. Massive Krell soldiers moving through combat exercises next to smaller Vraxian officers and delicate Delian peacekeepers. A year ago, such a scene would have been impossible. Now it was becoming normal. Hard to believe, isn't it? Jake said, joining Kelvin at the window. 6 months ago, they were trying to kill each other. Now they're learning to work together. It hasn't been easy, Kelvin observed. We've had 17 incidents where Krell and Council forces nearly came to violence. 3 diplomatic breakdowns that required emergency interventions, and more cultural misunderstandings than I can count. But no war, Jake pointed out. No attacks, no deaths. That's success, even if it's messy. Lisa approached with a data pad showing the latest reports. The cultural exchange programs are expanding. We now have 40 Krell students attending Council universities and 80 Council citizens studying on Krell worlds. The numbers are small, but it's progress. Helen was leading one of those exchange programs. She had spent the last 6 months on a Krell world, studying their biology and culture firsthand. Her reports had been eye-opening. The Krell weren't mindless predators. They had art, philosophy, and complex social structures. Their entire civilization was built around concepts of strength and honor, but they defined these concepts differently than humans initially understood. The real breakthrough had come 3 months ago, when a Krell warrior named Korax had saved a Council research station from a natural disaster. The station was in neutral space, studying a dangerous stellar phenomenon. When a solar flare threatened to destroy it, the nearest ship capable of rescue was a Krell patrol vessel. Korax didn't hesitate. He ordered his ship to the rescue and personally helped evacuate the researchers. That single act had done more to build trust than 1,000 diplomatic meetings. It showed that Krell could choose to protect instead of destroy. News of the rescue spread through both Council and Krell space. Corax became a hero to both species, a symbol of the new cooperation. Now Corax was on Valter Prime, serving as a liaison officer between Krell and Council forces. Kelvin had met with him several times and found the Krell warrior to be intelligent, thoughtful, and surprisingly diplomatic. "Ambassador Harris," a voice called out. Kelvin turned to see Corax approaching. The massive Krell moved with surprising grace through the center. Other species no longer backed away from him in fear. They nodded in greeting as he passed. "Commander Corax," Kelvin replied. "How are the joint exercises going?" "Better than expected," Corax admitted. His translation device had been upgraded, making his speech more natural. "The Council soldiers are learning quickly. They will never be Krell warriors, but they don't need to be. They are finding their own strength." "And the Krell soldiers? How are they adapting to working with Council forces?" Corax's armor plates shifted, and what humans had learned was the Krell equivalent of a thoughtful expression. "It is difficult for some. They were taught that non-predators are weak. Changing this belief takes time. But most are learning. They see that Council species have different strengths: technology, strategy, unity. These are valuable in their own way." Marcus joined the conversation. He had been instrumental in developing the training programs that brought different species together. "The key is showing everyone that different doesn't mean lesser. Krell are physically stronger and naturally aggressive. Council species are technologically advanced and cooperative. Both types of strength matter." "Speaking of cooperation," Lisa interjected, "we have a situation developing. The Terran Alliance wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Krell. But they're proposing that humans remain as permanent mediators in Krell-Council relations." Kelvin frowned. "That's not sustainable long-term. Eventually, the Krell and Council need to communicate directly without us in the middle." "I agree," Corax said surprisingly. "Humans have been valuable teachers, but the Krell must learn to speak for themselves in this new galaxy. We cannot always rely on Deathworld or mediators." "The Council representatives are worried," Marcus explained. "They're afraid that without human mediation, misunderstandings will lead to renewed conflict." "Then we need to give them confidence," Kelvin decided. "Set up a meeting between Council leaders and Krell pack leaders. No human mediators present, just translators. Let them talk directly and handle their own disagreements." Jake looked concerned. "That's risky. If it goes wrong, we could lose all the progress we've made." "If we don't take risks, we'll never move forward," Victoria countered. She had been promoted to Admiral of Joint Forces, commanding both Council and Krell ships in coordinated operations. The goal was never to make them dependent on us. It was to help them find their own way to coexist. The meeting was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During that time, both Council and Krell leaders prepared carefully. Helen worked with the Krell to help them understand Council diplomatic protocols. Marcus worked with Council leaders to help them understand Krell concepts of honor and respect. When the day arrived, Kelvin and his team watched from an observation room as representatives from both sides entered the conference hall. High Chancellor Trevak represented the Council. 3 Krell pack leaders represented their species. Human translators were present, but no human mediators. The meeting started awkwardly. Both sides were clearly nervous without humans to guide the conversation. There were misunderstandings. A Krell statement about strength was misinterpreted as a threat. A Council comment about cooperation was seen as suggesting weakness. Then something unexpected happened. Trevak made a mistake. He accidentally used a Krell phrase incorrectly, saying something that translated roughly to, "I challenge your mother's honor," instead of, "I respect your position." The room went silent. The Krell pack leaders looked shocked. Trevak realized his error immediately. For a moment it seemed like the meeting would collapse, but then one of the Krell leaders made a sound that the translators identified as laughter. "Your pronunciation is terrible, Chancellor, but we appreciate the attempt to speak our language." Trevak's scales shifted to an embarrassed blue. "My apologies. I have been studying Krell language, but clearly I need more practice." "As we need practice with yours," the Krell leader admitted. "Perhaps we can help each other learn." From that point on, the meeting transformed. Both sides relaxed. They stopped trying to be perfect and started being genuine. They made mistakes and laughed about them. They disagreed on some points but found common ground on others. In the observation room, Kelvin felt tension leaving his shoulders. "They're going to be fine." "We did it," Lisa said softly. "We actually did it." "They did it," Jake corrected. We just gave them the tools and the opportunity. The Krell and Council are the ones choosing to make this work. Helen was taking notes on her datapad. This is remarkable from an anthropological standpoint. We're witnessing the birth of a new galactic culture, one that incorporates both predator and prey species in genuine cooperation. It's unprecedented. The meeting lasted for 4 hours. When it ended, both sides emerged looking satisfied. They had discussed everything from trade agreements to joint scientific missions. They had established protocols for handling disputes without violence. They had even begun planning a joint celebration to mark 1 year of peace. Travak found Kelvin after the meeting.
Thank you, Ambassador Harris.
For everything. Humanity came to us when we were desperate and afraid. You taught us not just how to fight, but why to fight and when not to fight. You showed us that peace isn't weakness. It's a choice strong species make. You would have figured it out eventually, Kelvin replied. Humans just helped speed up the process. Perhaps, but I wonder how many worlds would have burned before we learned. How many billions would have died? Your intervention saved countless lives. Korax approached as well. The Krell owe humanity a debt. You showed us that there is more to strength than conquest. That protecting can be as powerful as destroying. Our pack leaders are beginning to understand. It will take generations for all Krell to fully embrace this new way. But the foundation is built. What will you do now? Marcus asked. Return to Krell space? No, Korax replied. I have requested to remain here as permanent liaison. The work of building this peace is not finished. I wish to be part of it. Over the following months, the cooperation deepened. The first joint Krell Council research station was established to study a dangerous anomaly near Council space. Krell warriors and Council scientists worked side by side. The station made discoveries that neither species could have achieved alone. Trade routes opened between Krell and Council worlds. Cultural exchanges expanded. Young Krell began attending Council universities in larger numbers. Council citizens started businesses on Krell worlds. The borders between the two civilizations began to blur. There were still problems. Old hatreds didn't disappear overnight. Some Krell still saw Council species as weak. Some Council citizens still feared the Krell. But these were becoming minority views.